Kerbal Space Program 2 is over. So what am I doing here again? Well, I figured that I ought to do one last video, which amazingly has been sponsored by Mova Globes. One of the coolest things you can buy, honestly. I am so hyped. More on that later. But yes, one last video in this game to properly acknowledge its departure while in its presence. The last KSP2 video I did was made before the Take-Two shutdowns were made public, and so I was still all wide-eyed and optimistic in the commentary about this game having a future, which, of course, it almost certainly no longer has. Why make this video right now? Well, yesterday, and that's Friday the 28th of June 2024, was the last day of operations at Intercept Games. The devs are no longer employed by Take-Two Interactive, and there's now nobody left to work on Kerbal Space Program 2. And so, I wanted to visit this thing of empty promises, this thing of oh so much potential, this stopper of clocks, and this thing that has, no two ways about it, been a significant part of my life for the past year and a half. And so, join me everyone, one last time, in Kerbal Space Program 2. I'll be going to the Mun in this mission because it felt fitting. It's basically the #1 most visited place in Kerbal Space Program. Getting to and landing on it is one of the hardest challenges in gaming for new players, and my first ever Kerbal Space Program 2 video, filmed all the way back in February 2023 before the game was publicly released, was an Apollo-style Mun mission. And so, you know, poetry and all that, I felt it would be a nice cyclical way of ending things with KSP2 on this channel by doing the first mission again at the end. So yeah guys, bask in that view of the Kerbal Space Center rapidly disappearing below us, below those clouds, as we, I guess, wave goodbye one final time to Kerbal Space Program 2. This may not necessarily be the end of KSP2 on this channel, because there is a admittedly very, very slim chance that Take-Two will eventually manage to successfully sell the IP, which is what they're reportedly trying to do at the moment, and if the game is acquired by another game studio and development resumes, then, you know, KSP2 then has a future potentially again, so it would make sense to start making videos once more. But I think if that's going to happen, it's going to be a long way off, first of all. When the new developers get hold of the code, it's going to take quite some time for them to get used to it and figure out bugs like this fairing deployment bug that still persists in the game as we cross the Kármán line and enter space. Now I'm going to pause the game right here, because I gotta tell you all about Mova Globes, sponsor of today's video. If you haven't heard of Mova Globes before, then let me say that these are no ordinary globes, and there is a very good reason why all of your favourite YouTubers have them. Mova Globes are self-rotating globes powered by light. No batteries, no ugly wires, just pure first-of-its-kind technology. They turn when exposed to ambient light thanks to hidden magnets that create the movement. And check this out, it even keeps spinning when I pick it up. It's literally like holding a piece of magic, and I love seeing people's reaction to it. There are over 40 designs to choose from, including world maps, outer space, and even famous artworks. The Outer Space collection is particularly stunning, featuring graphics provided by NASA, including planets, moons, asteroids, and constellations. If you're looking for the gift for the space nerd that has everything, or you just want to add something extraordinary to your home or office, Mova Globes are the perfect choice. You can get 10% off 6 and 8.5-inch Mova Globes with my code MATT10 at the link in the description below. So head over to movaglobes.com and check out their amazing collections. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. I am genuinely so humbled to have them sponsor me today, so thank you so much to Mova Globes. Nice, so you can just unpause the game and we can continue. For real though, I know in-video ads can sometimes be a bit sus, but honestly, I was so happy when Mova Globes contacted me to collaborate for this. I have legitimately always wanted one, and now I do have one. So yeah, really do check them out. They are as good as the marketing makes them out to me, though I am a bit scared of my cats knocking it over. I'm having to try and find a secure place to put it where it's out of reach of feline foes. But anyway, steering back on course to the video at hand. We have just conducted our Apollo-style vehicle reconfiguration by detaching the upper half of the spacecraft, flipping it around, and then docking it with the lander. But we're not going to expend that lower stage just yet. That's going to get us into a nice, stable, circular, low Kerbin orbit, and then we're going to use it to get us all the way to the Mun. Yeah, this rocket was way overbuilt on reflection. It has an enormous amount of delta V, far too much really, because initially I had planned to take this thing to the Mun and to Minmus, but honestly I felt that doing so would just stretch the video runtime to be longer than it really needs to be and wouldn't really make the video all that more interesting. Cue the 10,000 comments below telling me that they would have much rather seen a Mun and Minmus landing rather than a Mun landing alone. If that happens, then I apologize. Okay, no, I really am sorry for that one. Hopefully I can make things up to you guys by being really conscious about making sure we have no debris left in space by putting us on a collision course with the surface of the Mun before detaching that lower stage so that it crashes into the Mun surface, doesn't get stuck in space forever. And then of course with the mothership we need to course correct so that we ourselves do not meet the same fate. We actually got a Mun flyby and we can then circularize at perigee. I don't know why actually I was being so conscious about making sure there was no debris left in space on reflection, actually, because as mentioned in this video multiple times, that this is, in all likelihood, the very last Kerbal Space Program 2 mission I do. Unless we do, like, an annual thing, right? Like, every February the 23rd, is that when KSP 2 released? Whatever. I just do a KSP 2 thing, just to sort of reminisce about, what could have been. Or, when rocket works eventually get their answer to Kerbal Space Program 2 up and running, I'll probably do a piece comparing the two interpretations of what a Kerbal Space Program sequel would look like, but this is all in the far distant future, I believe. And as you may have noticed, there was a little stealth quick load there. On my first attempt at a Mun circularization burn, I initiated physics time warp to make it go faster, but I then had that bug where it's then impossible to drop out of time warp or cut your ship's throttle, and the thrust to weight ratio of the vehicle becomes unusably low. So I quick loaded and was met with another fun KSP2 bug, where the graphics for the heat shield fairing have fragmented and are floating alongside. Which, if you didn't spot it earlier, as we approach the daylight side of the Mun, yeah, you can see those kind of floating squares alongside the mothership. But no matter, nothing seems to have affected the lander, which is of course the only vessel that's going to be on screen for a wee while, as Jebediah Kerman and Bob Kerman make their way down to the surface of Kerbal Space Program 2's Mun for, again, potentially the final time. It's kind of an emotional video, but I feel like one that was necessary. It's nice to just get some closure, rather than just abruptly end my Kerbal Space Program 2 playthrough for beginners, science mode, exploration mode, whatever it was called. Then it just ends without any sort of, like I say, closure. This video is meant to be that, so if you're scrolling through my Kerbal Space Program 2 videos playlist, this is the last one. So it starts with first ever KSP2 mission, first ever Mun landing, whatever I call that video, the last Kerbal Space Program 2 video. So that's kind of why I made this video, really. And you might have noticed, actually, in the background during our descent, we had the golden Monarch there. Kind of another little sad thing, because the Monarch was because the golden Monarch was one of the first big story moments in Kerbal Space Program 2. So exploration mode isn't just a clone of science mode in KSP1. There's also meant to be like an overarching story where you explore the universe, piecing together information about an ancient alien civilization. The golden Monarch is one of the first things you discover in your journey and missions. In fact, it might be the very first one now I think about it. And I guess we're never going to find out what that story was meant, or how that story was going to play out, which is, I guess, another kind of sad thing, really. Anyway, with surface samples gathered, flags planted, and Maries meandered upon, our two space frogs have now re-embarked the lander, ready to make the difficult ascent back to low Mun orbit and dock with the orbiting command spacecraft. Since it's more or less orbiting equatorial and orbiting with the Mun's rotation, to reach the target spacecraft we're going to follow the 90-degree vector on the navball during our ascent, occasionally angling slightly radial to match the tilt of the target vessel's orbit, which I'm just doing by eye on the map screen right here, as you can see. And oh, would you look at that, we've got a very nice separation there on the dark side of the Mun, sub 1 kilometer distance, which is pretty good, I think, without needing to do any maneuver notes just on our initial ascent, so I was pretty pleased with myself. Here at the moment I'm just doing some slight puffs with the RCS, by pressing H and N with RCS enabled, just to modify our horizontal velocity a little bit to see if I could get those nodes a little bit closer. But 473 meter separation, I was pretty happy with that. So we can time warp now and get ready to decelerate and match our target's velocity. Maybe decelerate isn't the right word, because relative to us, we're going to be accelerating, right? Because we need to achieve Mun orbit, which requires us to go faster than we're currently going, but we're going to be slowing down relative to our target velocity speed, hence why I'm pointing retrograde on the nav ball. But if you pay close attention, the nav ball is currently in target mode rather than surface or orbital mode. As we perform that retrograde burn, we are now in circular Mun orbit. We can just burn towards the target vessel now and prepare to initiate the docking sequence, which is, I admit, a little bit tricky to see. One of the things I'm not going to miss that much about Kerbal Space Program 2 is potentially one of its strongest points for people who are playing the game, and that is it's very dark on the dark side of planets and moons. Ain't that great for content creators such as myself, because I'm trying to make a video, right? A visual medium, and if you can't see what's going on in the video particularly well, you see the problem. So Kerbal Space Program 1, you can really boost the ambient lighting on the dark sides of planets and moons, so it doesn't really have this problem as such. KSP 2, well, I guess it does and always will have this problem. I feel like I am going to somewhat miss these kind of like extendable engines that we have in Kerbal Space Program 2. They're really efficient engines, but they are methalox, or liquid fuel and oxidizer engines rather than nuclear powered engines like in KSP 1. It's just a nice little happy medium between the nuclear engines and the regular old chemical rocket engines. Although, I guess I'm doing modded Kerbal Space Program 1 now, these engines almost certainly exist in that game in the form of mods. Now here, I totally overcooked our Mun escape burn, because I was just trying to swing the camera around, get some beauty shots for a potential thumbnail, and I forgot to check the map screen, because the maneuver node wasn't really working correctly, right? Because it said the game thinks I've got 0 delta V, so I guess the maneuver node wasn't really working all that well. So yeah, a bit of a whoops, but as mentioned, look how much delta V we've got. Or how much delta V we had, I should say. We've now detached all of the engine and fuel tank stages, and I shouldn't even say delta V, should I? Because the game was saying 0 delta V, but we had a lot of fuel left over. We had over half of our fuel left over. So that's what I mean by saying we had lots and lots of delta V remaining. But yeah, not a lot of delta V left to kill. We are now subsonic as we descend through the atmosphere, decelerating under parachutes now. And yeah, we are below the clouds, but still above the water. And yeah, Bob coming, Jebediah coming, Bill coming there, all looking happy to be returning home. And with that, the last KSP2 mission comes to an end. You start thinking about the gravity of the moment, all those countless hours sunk into this abandoned game that once had so much potential and promise, counting down the seconds until splashdown to bring closure to this chapter of your life. But just before it happens, you pause.
Rockets. We should do vertical sometimes.
Yeah.